Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Saturday, January 13th, 2018, and this is episode 44. My name is Carol and I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog and also in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. So if you see something and you're wanting more information about it, check those places first. And if you don't find the answer you're looking for, feel free to contact me either via private message on Ravelry or in the episode thread there or in a YouTube comment. And if I can help you out, I would be happy to do so. So Happy New Year. Long time no see. It's been about 3.5 weeks since I recorded my last regular episode, and I haven't posted anything since Christmas Eve as part of my Vlogmas segments, and so it's been quite a while. Thank you for all the positive feedback regarding Vlogmas. I am glad that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed putting it together. It was a lot of fun to wake up every morning and think about what part of my day I might share with you. I don't consider that I live a very exciting life, but I do take pleasure from small things like tea and birds and beautiful scenery, and many of you seem to do the same. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to do. This week's episode is going to be a long one, so get ready to settle in. You might need a break or two. I might need a break or two. Be sure to have something to drink. I especially need something to kind of wet my whistle. I have some David's breakfast tea in my Downy Woodpecker cup. And there's a very special reason I'm using this cup today. My husband a couple of nights ago made some tea for me and brought it to me in this cup, which is unusual because I generally use a couple of different David's tea cups that come with the infusers. But it turned out those were in the sink needing washing, so he used this cup, and I remarked to him that I hadn't seen a Downy Woodpecker yet this winter. And then wouldn't you know it, the very next day I looked out the backyard and I saw one on the suet there. And then it flew up into the tree that's close to our back deck. So I was able to get some pictures and record a little bit of footage. So I'm going to put that in. So we have had snow off and on since after Christmas. Well, I guess we had a little bit before Christmas too, but we had a particularly bad storm and some freezing rain in the week following Christmas. And when the weather gets that bad, I will often put some suet and some birdseed out on our under the table on our back deck, just so it's a little bit more of a sheltered area where the birds can feed. In this case, it actually, unfortunately, the wind was blowing so much it quickly became covered anyway. But once the snow started to melt, the birds found it. So we've had quite a few birds on our back deck feeding. So I think it was a day after we got back from holidays, and I heard what I thought was hammers coming from the house a couple of doors down where they've been doing construction. And then I realized it was actually the flicker pecking away at this suet cake and making it quite a racket doing it. I tried over the next few days. I had two or three different flickers that were visiting quite regularly, but I couldn't get any footage. I finally was able to sneak up on one and took some footage, and then unfortunately I had zoomed in so close that it was all blurry. So I can't show you that. But what I will show you is the fun and games that go on all the time around the suet cake, and that is all the pecking order that is established. So I think in this shot you're going to see a juvenile white-crowned sparrow get kicked off by a mature white-crowned sparrow, and then it in turn gets ousted by a song sparrow. So this kind of stuff happens all the time, and it's so fun to watch. So I'll put that here. And then another thing that we've been seeing quite a few of are bald eagles. We often do around this time of year, and they will come and roost in the trees. Our house backs onto farmland, farm fields, and so we used to have a line of cedars that separated us from these fields, and they took them down a couple of years ago. Before they did, the eagles used to come and roost sometimes right in the cedars, so we would have a really good look at them. Now they're further afield, no pun intended. So there was one in a tree a couple of fields over this morning, and the sun was shining at that point. It's since gone away. So I zoomed in and I got a shot, so I'm going to share it with you here. Never get tired of seeing eagles. They're just such regal looking birds. They're beautiful. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently today. I have a couple of giveaways to talk about, and then I thought I would catch you up on what's been going on in my life over the last few weeks, and then I'll show my knitting and talk about what I've been reading and what I have plans for coming up. It just seemed to make more sense to do it that way this episode, so that's what I'm going to do. First thing I want to talk about is that January 6th, 2017 was when I put up my first podcast. So that's just over a year ago. So I am celebrating my first podiversary by doing a giveaway. And the first thing I'm giving away is this beautiful skein of West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite, and it's wool and silk lace weight yarn in the Viscount colorway. And this was sent to me by a very generous podcast viewer to use as a giveaway for you. So I am going to be offering this up, and I'm also going to make a project bag to match. I haven't done it yet, haven't got the fabric yet, but I'm going to sew up a project bag and include that with it. So I'm going to do this giveaway a little bit differently. I want to give YouTube viewers and Ravelry members equal opportunity, and to make it easier for me to draw from, I'm going to ask that if you're interested in winning those prizes, that you go to the blog, and I'll put the address down here again so you can see, and leave a comment in this episode's thread or comments, and once I have everyone's name, I'll put them in order and use a random number generator to draw from. So I do not want to forget to say thank you to all of you who have been watching and have helped make this year a very, very special one for me. I feel like I've made some new friends, and just had so much support from all of you. As I say, I don't live a really exciting life, but I do enjoy talking about knitting and sewing and sharing projects and hearing back from from you about what all of you've been doing, and so thank you so much for all the support that you have shown me this past year, and I really am looking forward to year 2 of A Stitch in Time. So there's the first giveaway I want to talk about. Secondly, see, I gotta find a place to put this. As I said, I'm surrounded by things. The second thing I want to talk about is the Agatha Christie along. So since last January, I've been running this knit along, crochet along in conjunction with reading my way through my Agatha Christie collection. Originally, I had decided it would last a couple of months, and then I expanded it to run indefinitely. In August, I introduced a prize component, and each month I have drawn a winner from among the finished projects right from the beginning to the end of the knit along. And I've decided it's time to wrap things up. Participation is definitely down. I know this year I'm going to be reading less Agatha Christie and more other things, although I'll still keep reading my Agatha Christies. It just seems like the time is right. So I'm going to do a drawing for, I'm going to do a drawing today, and then I'm going to give all of you until January 31st to post any other finished projects you might have for this knit along, and then I'll do one final drawing in my first episode in February. Oh, speaking of, I think I forgot to say that I will be drawing for this yarn and the project bag in my first podcast in February also. So you'll have a couple of weeks to enter for that. I'm going to draw that to a close January 31st, and for the time being, I won't have any knit-alongs running, but I'm giving some thought to some others that we might do. So this month's winner is Little Mouse, or Jane, and she wins for her blue tit socks. And those she knit, they were inspired by Miss Marple and Miss Marple's hobby of bird watching, and she said that she's sure that Miss Marple must see blue tits in her garden all the time. And so congratulations, Jane. Please contact me on Ravelry and let me know which pattern you would like, up to a value of $10 US. That is giftable on Ravelry, and I will get that to you as soon as possible. So congratulations, Jane. Jane did win once before for another project, and that's the beauty of this knit along, is you can enter as many projects as you want. You can only win one for each project, but I do draw from all of the finished projects from the beginning to the end of the knit along. So you may win more than once. We've had a couple of people who have won more than once. Okay, so let's move on to what's been going on. So a lot has happened since the last time we spoke. First and foremost was Christmas. We had a lovely series of Christmas celebrations. Christmas Eve we spent with some relatives on my mom's side of the family. And then Christmas morning, our two sons and my one son's girlfriend came over, and then my mom was staying with us, so we all opened some gifts and together Christmas morning here, and then we headed over to my daughter's place and exchanged some gifts there. And then we had Christmas dinner up at my sister's house. It was her turn to host a Christmas dinner for my side of the family, so there are about 25 of us in all. It was a lovely turkey dinner and lots of fun as always. Both Cameron and I had Christmas colds, so we weren't at our best, but Boxing Day we were able to do like nothing, and the next day we didn't do very much either, so that really helped us kind of get over them quite quickly. And then the 28th we went to another of my sister's houses, and she hosted brunch for my side of the family, and we do this every year, and then we celebrated our usually we celebrate our winter birthdays then, but since we didn't have a get-together for fall birthdays, we combined all the fall and winter birthdays, so there's a lot of gift exchanging going on again. Everyone seemed really happy with the gifts that I had made this year. My grandson immediately put his socks on, and they're a little bit long, but he'll grow into them. He's growing like a weed. I was a little worried about my older granddaughter liking the nightgown I had sewed her. I thought she might think it was too old-fashioned and frilly, but actually she said she loved it. And the two girls looked really cute in their nightgowns. And other socks and things just were very well received. So that's always gratifying. And then the 29th, the Friday, was supposed to be my younger granddaughter's birthday party. She turned 3 on the 30th, but unfortunately we had some really bad weather over the Thursday and the Friday. We had a big snowstorm and freezing rain, and so she canceled my daughter decided to cancel the party. There just wasn't anywhere on her street for parking, for one thing, because their street didn't get plowed at all. We live on more of a main street, so we always thankfully get our streets plowed. So we did go over on the Friday anyway, and brought some cupcakes and some gifts, and so she had a little party regardless. And then Saturday morning, we were up early to catch the ferry to go to Vancouver Island. My mother-in-law and one of my husband's brothers and his wife live in Victoria, so we spent a couple of days with them, celebrated New Year's, and then we were off on our little holiday on Salt Spring Island. Salt Spring Island is the largest of the Gulf Islands, which are a group of islands in the waters separating the lower mainland of British Columbia, Vancouver area, with the Vancouver Island. Did I say that? Victoria area. So we took the ferry from Victoria to Salt Spring, and that was only, I think, about a 35-minute ferry ride. So it's quite close to Vancouver Island. And neither my husband or I had been there before, so it's always fun to explore new places. So we had rented a cabin there for 5 nights. Now, when I say a cabin, I mean a luxury cabin. It's not like our family cabin that we have up in the Caribou. It is, which is very rustic, and I think the rule is you're not allowed to have anything new in our cabin up in the Caribou, our family cabin. Whereas this one was quite lovely. It was actually half of a duplex. It was 3 stories, had a bedroom, bathroom downstairs. The middle floor was living room area and kitchen and a powder room. And then the top floor was like an open loft bedroom, and it had a beautiful soaker tub and glassed-in shower, and it was lovely. Now, we had what was called a lake view cabin, which was kind of stretching it because all we could see was like this little corner of water, and occasionally we could see a duck swim through this little patch of water that we could see. Across the little roadway from us were the cabins that were actually on the lake, and then that and the trees kind of blocked our view of the water. But we could go down. They had a dock. We walked down to the dock, and they had some chairs set up at the end of the dock. And actually, it was not a very large lake at all, but it was lovely. So the view we had from our living room, there was like a deck off the living room. There were 2 dead trees up on either side of the cabin that was across from us. And the first thing I said was, there should be some eagles on those trees. And I think it was the 3rd morning we woke up, and sure enough, there was an eagle on each one of them. And then the next morning, there were 3 eagles on one of them. So I'll put the pictures here. They're zoomed in on so you could see, but because it was early earlier in the morning, and the weather was kind of overcast. You can't really get a good look at their, in the sunshine. A bald eagle has that bright white head. At least the mature ones do. I think one of the pictures shows an immature eagle. They don't have the white head for, I think it's about 2 or 3 years. In any case, that we did get our eagles, and they sat there for a couple hours each day. So that was just, the icing on the cake. One day we were trying to drive up to a lookout. It's Mount I want to say Mackenzie, but I don't think that's right. Anyway, there was a mounted lookout you could drive up to, but we made it most of the way up, and then we encountered some snow, and it was just a little bit too deep, and we could feel it kind of, it was rubbing against the underside of the car, and we didn't want to get stuck up there, so we turned around and came down. So we never did get to see the viewpoint. But then we drove out to one of these bays that had a walking trail and walked out to what was called Daffodil Point. And the fog was coming in, so it was kind of gloomy. And yet when you came out to the end of the point, it was a lot brighter. And it was a stand of Gary oak trees, and so it was really a nice walk. It was a little bit brisk, but not too bad, and brisk as in a bit cold. And then when we walked back, there was at the end of the bay, there was like a wharf and stuff, and saw a bird and wasn't sure what it was. Heard it and saw it fly to this post, and then I was able to zoom in with my camera and discovered it was a belted kingfisher. So I did get some pictures of that, so I'll put one in here for you to enjoy too. So that was a nice little outing. Other than going to the pub one day for lunch and walking around a few of the little shops in town, we didn't do too much. We kind of just cocooned. I did lots of knitting and reading. And my husband read a lot. We watched some TV, not much, but we one night the place had a kitchen, so we cooked all of our own dinners there and breakfast. And like I say, we went out for lunch once. Excuse me. One night we were turned on this 70s music channel, and I heard all these songs that we grew up with that we hadn't heard for ages. It was just so nice. We sat and drank wine, and sometimes we'd get up, dance to a really good one, and just had a lovely time together. A true break from real life. So we came back on the Saturday, so I guess that's January 6th. Our ferry didn't leave till about 3:30 in the afternoon, and this ferry ride was quite a bit longer. It was a couple hours long to get back to the mainland, and then it was a good hour and a half to drive home from there. So it was later when we got home, later that evening. And then Sunday we undecorated the house, took down the Christmas tree, took down all the Christmas decorations, got groceries, kind of, settle back into real life. And then Monday was the mountains of laundry to do and such. And so, we're back to real life. I had hoped to record Wednesday, but I've been dealing with some health issues this week, and ended up having a doctor's appointment on Wednesday, and blood work. Had to go to the lab for blood work and pick up some prescriptions and stuff. So that wasn't going to happen. And then Friday we had this guy come in and get our TV working again. One of our boxes for our TV was acting up, so he did fix that. So it's nothing health-wise, nothing serious, although I guess any issue, if you don't address it, can become serious. But one of the One of the aspects I'm dealing with is anemia, and been this week experiencing some of the symptoms that go along with that, like dizziness and fatigue and headaches and such. But got some iron supplements now, and I see the doctor Monday, and we'll discuss the results from the lab work and get everything else straightened away. So it's nothing that can't be treated, and I'm definitely feeling better today than I did earlier in the week. So I'll be fine. So I think I guess that's about it. That brings you up to date to what's been going on. So I'm going to pause it here and then come back and talk about some knitting. You would think with all the knitting I've done in the past few weeks that I would have lots of finished projects to show you, but the truth is I only have two. The first you might recognize as my Land of Sweets cowl. This is by Helen Stewart and is part of her KnitVent 2017 collection. And for those of you who've been watching, you know that I knit this as an Advent project and went through my sock yarn scraps and picked out 24 colorways, and each day I knit a stripe in a different one. So yeah, I'm quite, you can see it's all been blocked now, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. It's nice for a day like this when it's kind of cool out, and a sweater's too warm, but a t-shirt's not warm enough. So when I put something around my neck like this, it just is a perfect balance for me. So yeah, I'm quite happy with how that turned out. And then the second finished project I have are my plain vanilla socks. I had these as a travel project over the holidays, and other than working the heels when we were at our cabin for our holiday, mostly they got work done in the car. So I did an afterthought heel, which I'm actually quite happy with how the joins turned out. I thought they were quite good. The yarn I used is Fiber Nymph Dye Works Bedazzled, and the colorway is The Elves Were in the Eggnog, which I have loved ever since I first saw Lisa show it on her podcast 90% Knitting years ago when she first introduced the color. So I was thrilled to get my hands on some this year and enjoyed these so much. Just what pretty colors, and I haven't worn them yet. I wanted to show them off first. So I'm not waiting till next Christmas to wear them. I'm going to wear them anytime I want because they're so fun. They don't have to be Christmas socks, right? Anyway, very happy with those. So lots and lots of works in progress. So I'm looking for a place to lay these down out of the way. Let me get my notes here. Okay, so the first thing I'll show you, I cast this on the winter solstice. It is called The Longest Night Shawl, and it is by Lori Law of Ocean Wind Knits. And the yarn I am using is, let's see if I've got the label here. It's by Woolly Wonka Fibers, and it is a merino silk, Woolly Wonka Fibers. It's a merino and silk lace weight in the solstice colorway. And I have done the first chart and 2 out of 5 repeats on the second chart. It is a triangular shawl, so you work a center stitch with yarn overs on either side of it, and then the same pattern is repeated in each side of the triangle. So I'm going to spread it out a little bit if I can. Like most lace work, especially on lace weight yarn, it mostly just looks like a bunch of spaghetti until you block it out. So you you can't really get a really good sense of the beautiful lace pattern in there, but hopefully you'll get the idea. And the yarn itself is, as you can see, is a tonal blue, kind of blue and periwinkle, lavender. It's really, really pretty. I've hardly put a dent in this, unfortunately. There's a long ways to go, but that's okay. This is going to be one of those projects that it takes as long as it takes. You'll probably be hearing my furnace come on and off during this episode. It's a little bit noisy. Sorry, can't be helped. Sorry, I just realized I dropped a couple stitches off the end. I want to make sure they get put back on before I put this project away. There we go. And I'm storing that in this bag I made for myself with this winter forest scene and these lovely cardinals. Unfortunately, we don't get cardinals out here in Western Canada. So I always envy you people in the East that get to see them. They're so beautiful. Okay, the next thing, and I worked on this a lot actually while we were on holidays, is the Cederberg shawl by Tabitha Hedrick. And it is kind of an asymmetrical triangular shawl. And it is knit in 3 colors of Sweet Georgia yarn Tough Love sock. And the colorways I am using are Gold Mine as my main color, Smitten as my contrasting color 1, and then Orchid as contrasting color 2. So I'm just going to hold this up. It's grown quite a bit since I last showed it. Starts off skinny. Oh, I better go this way. I think it's the right way. Starts off skinny and gets wider and wider and wider. No, I guess I've got it upside down. Oh well, that's okay. You get the idea. You can wear it either way. I guess it's not upside down actually, because there is the border. So this next few sets of stripes are going to alternate between this lace pattern in the Orchid and then these striped sections using the Gold Mine and the Smitten. So yeah, that's been a really a good project to work on while I visit or watch something on TV, or you know, it's not too much attention that needs to be focused on that. So that's been a good project for that type of thing. See what else? Oh yes, one project I took with me when we went away were the socks that I had started way back in March, called Couplet by Bonnie Sennett. And this is the first sock, and I think I had done to about there. So I finished up the first sock, as you can see. And the yarn is Fleece Artist blue-faced Leicester sock in the, what's it called, winter sleep colorway. So it's kind of greens and blues and a little bit of a kind of a tan, almost taupe golden. I don't know exactly how to describe it. Quite a subtle colorway. And the couplet for her has the lace at the top here, where it can also be done as a man's sock and, or I guess a woman's too, but there's a version that doesn't include the lace, that just has this stitch pattern. So as you can see, I chose to do the lace. And then I got the second one cast on and completed the lace sections. So now I'm ready to carry on down the leg on this one. So that was a good one to pick up again, because I had neglected it for a long time. when we got home, there was a package waiting for me, and it is yarn from Blacker Yarns that I had ordered before Christmas for Birkin. And I know this is a very popular sweater. It's a top-down Colorwork yoke sweater, the floral pattern, and it's by Caitlin Hunter. So I caught the Birkin fever and decided I must have one. And so I cast it on like right away. I think the day after we got home. I probably shouldn't have, but I couldn't resist. So I've done quite a bit. Actually, it shows better. This is the back, but it's laying flatter there. So as you can see, I've well into the Colorwork. So I've done this green and then have this rose and kind of a greeny, yellowy green, then the lavender there. And I'm working on, I think I'm just about to add the pink back in. Parts of this Colorwork pattern involve 3 colors in a row instead of just 2, which is like normal Fair Isle does, or traditional Fair Isle. There's also the option to do baubles if you want, and I thought I would do that and add some texture rather than just knit them as plain stitches. Some of my baubles are better than others, but I think once they're blocked it'll all come out quite well. Something I realized too, now I chose these colors online, so you're a little bit limited as to seeing how they'll work together. And I realized that the pink and this yellowy green do not contrast with this gray as much as this darker green and the lavender do. But because this has the green, the strong green here and the strong lavender here, and then this green will be repeated at the bottom, I was okay with that, and I actually kind of like the subtlety of those other colors in the background. So I'm very happy. I'm happy with my color work. I'm feeling really good about the tension, how it's looking. I've really enjoyed doing color work again. I have high hopes for this sweater. I was watching Fiber Town, which is with Emily, Chain of Fools, and she had just finished the color work on hers, and she was worried that it was going to be too small across here because there's no increases that take place from between this dark green till you finish this whole section of the floral part. And she said it was tight across her because it'll sit here. It was tight. I am hopeful it'll be okay. I can't really try it on too well until I'm a little further along and get past that section, but just from putting it over my head and kind of trying it on a little bit like this, it doesn't feel too bad, so I'm hopeful. I also think when I block it, it'll stretch out a little bit, so stay tuned for that. I am hopeful. Colors I'm using, the main color I'm using is, I'm using the Blacker Yarn Swan, Falkland Islands wool in the 4-ply. So this color is Stone. This is Tussock. Tea Berry. Yeah, Tea Berry. This is Balsam Bog. And then Pale Lavender is this one. That one I had to rewind because it was all caught up inside. So yeah, I didn't work on anything else for a few days, but then I needed to put that aside because I have a more timely project that I needed to work on. While I was I guess it was the day we went over to my daughter's for my younger granddaughter's birthday. My older granddaughter, she's turning 13 at the beginning of February, and I was wearing kind of a beret slouchy hat, and she remarked that she wanted a slouchy hat. And so I said, well, your birthday's coming up. I could knit one for you, and asked her what color she wanted. And she didn't know how to describe it, but we realized what she was talking about was turquoise. She couldn't think of what that shade of blue was called. And then she added that she would like some gloves to go with it, and not mitts and not fingerless gloves, but gloves, which I have only attempted once before in my life, but and I got as far as starting the thumb. I think I might have knit one thumb, and then I took them apart, excuse me, frogged them. So I'm actually trying, I'm pretty sure it's the same pattern again, because I know I had tried some that were in a magazine. I'm pretty sure these are the ones. So this is from Interweave Knits Holiday Gifts 2009. I think that's what it is. Yeah, Holiday 2009. And they are called Lace and Twist Gloves. There's a good up-close look there. It's actually not that easy to find just a plain glove pattern. Most are fingerless gloves or fingerless mitts. So when I was in Victoria, I looked for turquoise yarn. I found this Sans Garn Sisu. It's color 673. I can't read that from here. 673. Sorry, turquoise. So that's very definitely turquoise. Turquoise on this camera doesn't always show up as turquoisey as it really is, but that's not too bad. So I've been working on that for the last couple of days. So I've got one glove that is ready to do the first actual thumb. So that you can see this lace and twist pattern, which part of me thinks to have holes on a glove maybe defeats the purpose. On the other hand, it's really pretty. So we'll see. So yeah, I've got that one done as far as that goes. And then the second glove, I am just about to start the thumb increases for the other hand. So I've got a good start on those, and then I'm going to find a fairly plain stockinette slouchy hat, and then just incorporate this lace pattern somehow into it. Don't know exactly if I'll do it all the way around or just do a strip on each side, or or up the front. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but I'll make it match somehow. So I've actually been enjoying these. I'm not looking forward to the whole finger part. I think it's going to be really fiddly, but sure sign of love, right? Willing to do them for her. And as for what I'm not knitting, I've decided to frog a couple of projects. One is my tulle shawl by Helen Stewart. This was also part of KnitVent. And I have nothing against the pattern, and I have nothing against the yarn. You can see I actually already salvaged the needles. I think it's a lovely project, and I will return to it one day, but I had infused these beads, which you probably can hardly see, and that's the problem. It incorporates beads, and the beads I have are just too small. And I kind of knew that when I started, and I persevered, and just decided in the end that it's a lot of work to not be appreciated. So I will look for some beads. I think the beads are a pretty addition, so I will look for some beads that are larger that will complement this yarn, and then I would like to reknit it, because I think the color is beautiful. You can see it's a beautiful tonal purple. It actually shows up a bit brighter on camera than it is in real life, but that gives you a really good idea of all the tones in it. And since the whole KnitVent collection was based on the Nutcracker, and the tulle shawl, the description gave a nod to the Sugar Plum Fairy, and this colorway was called Plum Pudding. Like, it just all seemed like it was the right combination. So I'd like to do it again out of this yarn. It just isn't going to happen till I find the right beads. And the other project I've decided to frog are these cozy Czech socks that I started for my brother-in-law last, I don't know, spring probably. They just didn't hold my attention. They are not that exciting. You can see the yarn's kind of boring. The pattern itself, it's just not holding my attention. I think it's a really nice man sock pattern, and I will return to it one day, I think. But if I do so, I think I need a yarn that's going to make it more bearable, because this one is just, it's just not that exciting. And I have other things I'd rather knit. So those two things are hitting the frog pond and will be off my conscience if it comes right down to it. One thing that, other than the slouchy hats that I have upcoming, I'm sorry, I'm just looking around. Oh, I'll grab it and come back. I picked up something, well, I picked up more than one something during our travels, but I will come back with and show you some yarn and talk about a project that I am going to knit with it. So I'm going to take a break, clear a bunch of this stuff out of the way, bring in some acquisitions and show those off. So I'll be right back. While I was in Victoria, I went to Beehive Wool Shop, which is my favorite shop there, favorite yarn shop there. I had earned a 15% discount on my next purchase, and I've been carrying around this card for the last couple of visits and decided I was hoping to use it this time. My initial thought was to get a sweater's quantity of Brooklyn Tweed Loft to do a Colorwork yoke sweater, but the colorway that I wanted wasn't in stock, and so I decided to spend it regardless. So I picked up that turquoise yarn for my granddaughter's hat and gloves, and then my eye was caught by this sample they had done up for this shawl called Swerve by Deborah Frank. And it consists of garter stitch sections of a more solid yarn. And theirs was made up in this baby alpaca silk. And then it is striped with sections of, well, they had Rowan Kid Silk Haze stripe. But they didn't have any of the colorway left that they had used for the sample. And so I ended up shopping around and finding this yarn by Kochia called Concept. And it's a similar yarn. It's a merino silk, or a mohair silk lace weight. And it's striped. So I thought these two colors together would look really good. So I was so excited about it. I actually bought needles, and I cast it on right away when we got to our cabin. Decided to work on it there. And the stripes of the mohair are done with short rows, so that one end of the stripe is very narrow and then it widens as it moves across the shawl. It's very effective. The only thing is I had bought a set of needles that was a 0.5 millimeter smaller than the pattern had suggested, because I'm a loose knitter. But even so, I feel like I need to go down another 0.5 millimeter. So I've ended up frogging what progress I did make. But I'm going to cast it on again fairly soon and try again with a bit smaller needle. Because I've already knit on it quite a bit, I kind of got it out of my system, so I'm not as anxious to make it now because I've already got a taste of the project. But this will be happening again soon, fairly soon, soonish. It is lovely. Both the yarn and both yarns are lovely to work with. But also, while I was there, I was drawn, I've seen this yarn. I bought a skein of it in Kelowna in a different colorway and this summer. And this is a Fleece Artist yarn. They put out a special edition to celebrate Canada's 150th birthday this year. And this is their National Parks collection. And it's similar to a Tosh Merino Light in that it's a single ply merino wool, kind of a fingering weight. So my eye was on this really nice turquoise and white and aqua skein, and then I thought, okay, you've already knit enough of those colors, plus I was buying the turquoise yarn for my granddaughter, but I had my red coat on and I thought this would make a nice complementary scarf, and so I picked up this skein. So that'll become a scarf at some point. Scarf, shawl, that type of thing. And then I was received some yarny gifts for Christmas. But I got a couple of different gift certificates for our local yarn shop, and also one in Langley, which is about a 45-minute drive away, called 88 Stitches. So I look forward to spending those. My daughter gave me this skein of Malibu Go Soft in the Soulless colorway, and then she got these beads to go with it. So that will become a shawl scarfy thing of some sort. Beautiful. Aren't that gorgeous colors? Oh, love it. And then my son, our local yarn shop, one of our local yarn shop is Black Cat Custom Yarn. If you've watched, you've heard me talk about them before. They just opened up this year. And one of my sons gave me January's club, sock club membership. And so that was ready to pick up earlier this week. And this is their everyday sock in the champagne colorway. So I was thinking, I'm pretty sure I'm going to join Helen Stewart's Sock Society this year. And just judging from what I've seen of her sock designs in the past, I have a feeling this would be suitable for one of those. So that's what that might become. She tends to have fairly simple designs that show off tonal or lightly variegated skeins really well. And then I recently received this beautiful skein of Caper Sock by String Theory from a friend. And it came on a day I was not doing too well, and so it was really helped to brighten my day. So you know who you are. Thank you very, very, very much. It's gorgeous. Just the right color. Red is my favorite color, hands down. And this is beautiful. As you can see, beautiful tones of red. And it's a merino cashmere nylon blend. So I have a feeling it's going to become a shawl just because it's so soft. Although again, depending on what Helen Stewart's sock patterns look like, this would also make a lovely pair of socks. So look forward to knitting with that. So yeah, lots of yarn acquisitions and some future yarn purchases to come. And then while we were on Salt Spring Island, I had looked before we got there to see if there were any yarn shops, of course, because that's what you do when you go somewhere and you're a knitter. I couldn't see any that appear to be active currently. But the first day we were there, we got there too early to check in, and so we took a little drive around the northern part of the island, and we passed a potter, and one of the signs outside mentioned that she did yarn bowls, which got me thinking that would be a really nice souvenir to pick up from our trip. So I went back, I looked online. We didn't stop at that one. It was, I don't even know if it was open. But I went online and looked up yarn bowls in Salt Spring and found out that they carried some yarn bowls at this waterfront gallery in Ganges, which is the main town on Salt Spring Island. And so the day that we went out for lunch, we went there first, and they had a number of different shops in this little shopping area, and kind of did a little bit of window shopping. But we went in this gallery, And they had two different yarn bowls. They had a smaller one with a dragonfly motif on it, and then they had this one. Kind of looks like buttons. So you can see you can put your yarn through these two holes, and then it's kind of stuck there till you're done with your project. Or you can put it through that little loopy thing. So I decided the larger one would be more practical, because I can fit that big skein of lace weight for my longest night shawl in here, where the other is really only big enough for like a skein of sock yarn wound up. And then when I was doing up the show notes for the episode, the woman put her name on a card for me, the woman who's running the gallery, so Anne Byrne. So she does have a website, and what I've learned is that actually both yarn bowls were made by her, but I ended up choosing this one. So yeah, I thought that would be a very nice nice souvenir from Salt Spring. And I also picked up this little sheep here, you can see, and then this is actually a Christmas decoration that my daughter gave me a couple years ago, and I decided to, or it might have been last year, anyway, I decided to leave it out and hang it up here. And then I picked up another, they had only had two of these little sheep, so I picked up a second one, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. It might become a giveaway, or I'm not sure I might keep it. I don't know. I just thought there were only two. I was going to grab them both. So I've also done quite a bit of reading over the last few weeks. I know I spoke on a previous episode or episodes about Caroline Little House Revisited by Sarah Miller. I don't remember if I had finished it as of the last podcast or not. It was a novel based on the story told in Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder, only told through her mother's eyes. And it was written using both Little House on the Prairie as a guide and also drawing on real life facts, and the story as recounted in Pioneer Girl, which was the manuscript that by Laura Ingalls Wilder that the Little House on the Prairie novels were based on. So once I finished that, I had been reading it on Kindle, and a book came up. You know, after you read a book, they'll suggest other titles for you, and one was called A Wilder Rose, a Novel by Susan Wittig Elbert. And this book told part of the story of Rose Wilder Lane, which was Laura Ingalls Wilder's daughter, who was also an author and was actually writing before Laura Ingalls Wilder was known as an author. And she wrote for newspapers and also wrote a number of novels, some biographies, and quite a few magazine articles over the course of her writing career. And she had quite a hand in working with Laura Ingalls Wilder to get her life story published as the Little House on the Prairie series of books. And this book, A Wilder Rose, was a novel, but was based on letters between, Rose Wilder Lane, letters, journals, and also information from a biography that had been published. I think it's William Holt. And at the time it was published, this biography came under some criticism because it paints a fairly harsh picture of Laura Ingalls Wilder and portrays her as a very wooden and just not a very good fiction writer. And he credits Rose Wilder Lane with much of basically ghost writing the Little House on the Prairie books. Since then, scholars have argued that the two together are what created this series. It was Laura's stories and her idea of themes, etc., combined with Rose's ability to add some color and description, etc., to the books. So really they were a collaborative effort, and they wouldn't have existed without both women, essentially. So it was an interesting book. I don't find her, or especially in the beginning, did not find her a very sympathetic character. And I don't even know towards the end if I did, which is maybe unfair, but I don't know. She was a very strong woman, which is a good thing. But I thought she was portrayed as kind of harsh in her judgment of her mom. And perhaps it's a true picture, perhaps not. I think partly, I admit part of my view is colored by my years of admiration and respect for Laura Ingalls Wilder, so I don't like to hear her dissed. Full disclosure. So anyway, it was worth reading, for sure. Along that lines, one of the gifts that I received for Christmas from my sister Janine, who's also a huge Laura Ingalls Wilder fan, and she and I are doing a Laura Ingalls Wilder pilgrimage this summer. She gave this book to me, which is called Pioneer Girl Perspectives and Exploring Laura Ingalls Wilder. So it's a series of essays discussing Laura Ingalls Wilder and her writing. And the Pioneer Girl is a reference to this book, which is Pioneer Girl, the annotated autobiography. And this is basically the original manuscript that Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote, and that her Little House on the Prairie books were based on, her Little House series. I keep calling them Little House on the Prairie books, but the Little House series. It was based on her memoirs from this book, from these writings, but this includes a lot of side notes, discussion of the life that was happening, or the facts behind all these things. And I'm not saying this very well, sorry. Anyway, it is what it says. It's an annotated autobiography. So it's Laura Ingalls Wilder's words, and then perspectives added by Pamela Smith Hill, and others. So between them, I've had this for a few years, and then this goes with it. So I'm sort of going to be rereading this and reading this and refamiliarizing myself with Laura and her story before we head out on our trek this summer. So there will be less time, as I said, for Agatha Christie, but I am not giving up. I also have been reading this book, Death on the Nile. I just finished it last night, and I was saying to my husband what a convoluted ending it was. It's this person, no, it's this person, no, it's this person, and then there's this whole dramatic ending to it. So, or melodramatic, maybe is a better word. As always, I enjoy my Agatha Christie's. I'm not going to stop reading them. I still want to work my way through my entire collection in order of publication, so I'll continue to do that this year. But she might take a backseat to Laura Ingalls Wilder. So you'll be hearing more about that. And I admit it, I've been listening to Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House by Michael Wolff. Yes, I know it's probably not all true, and yes, it's kind of the book of the moment and gossipy, etc. But I couldn't resist. All the little excerpts that came out before it was released were rather intriguing, and so yeah, I hopped on the bandwagon. I think I have a couple hours left to listen to it there, so I'm not really going to comment further than that to say it's definitely makes for interesting reading or listening. How much of it is actually true, I don't know. Like everyone else. So yeah, I think I have no idea how long this episode is going to be. Thanks for sticking with me through it all. It's Saturday, so I do not anticipate recording in the coming week. I expect my next episode is either going to be Friday or Saturday or early next week. So take care until then. Again, if you're interested in winning that beautiful lace weight yarn and a project bag in celebration of my podiversary, go to the blog and leave a comment on this week's episode. And if you're knitting something that you can tie into Agatha Christie, be sure to, if you finish it before January 31st, be sure to post a picture of it in the Agatha Christie Along thread and get in your last chance to win a prize for that KnitAlong. So take care until I talk to you next time. Happy knitting, and thank you as always for watching and for all of your support. Happy New Year. Bye.